Hello and welcome to People and Profit, your essential weekly business briefing. I'm Brian Quinn. Thanks for joining us. On this week's show, the EU's approval of a flexible extension to the UK's Brexit date has done little to alleviate business uncertainty across the Channel, nor across the Irish Sea. We'll be taking a closer look at what's likely the key dilemma of the Brexit debate, the Irish border, and what Brexit means for Irish businesses, with Sinead Lonergan, Manager for Business Group Enterprise Ireland here in France. April 11th saw the European Union agree to delay Brexit until either June or October, depending on the UK's participation in EU elections. For politicians and businesses alike, the fear of a chaotic no-deal Brexit outweighing the desire to finally end the gridlock. But it's clear that calculus is likely changing, on the continent at least. French President Emmanuel Macron fought hard against a longer extension, and Germany is warning that further delay past October will be impossible. But as patience wears out, European Council President Donald Tusk urged EU members not to let their Brexit fatigue get the better of them and to leave open the possibility for the UK to undo Brexit before it happens.
On both sides of the Channel, everyone, including myself, is exhausted with Brexit, which is completely understandable. However, this is not an excuse to say, let's get it over with, just because we are tired. We must continue to deal with Brexit with an open mind and in a civilized manner. Because whatever happens, we are bound by common fate, and we want to remain friends and close partners in the future.
While some British businesses have expressed relief over that Brexit delay, many have called the latest result the worst of both worlds, simply extending the uncertainty without getting any closer to approving a deal. What are Irish businesses thinking about all this? Sinead Lonergan is the manager for Enterprise Ireland here in France. She helps Irish companies make their way in the French marketplace. Sinead, thank you so much for being with us here. Let's start with a simple question, if there is such a thing in this context. Is there a consensus among Irish businesses on this Brexit extension? Are they happy about it?
Well, I must admit that there is doubt, continued doubt, and this is going on for some time now. And clearly there are some key concerns about what the result of these negotiations will be. However, the UK, and just to put it into context, the UK represents approximately 34% of our exports, and the Irish economy depends on its exports for the most part. We are an island nation of close to 5 million people. We depend on our exports, and 34% of our exports are currently going to the UK. My objective here as manager of France is to help increase the exports into the continent, and notably to France, to relay. Obviously, we'll continue to grow in the UK markets, but obviously to diversify into other markets and be less reliant on the UK market.
Indeed. And one of the things that British businesses are so worried about is in today's marketplace of just-in-time deliveries, the supply chain is so important to them. And just because something is manufactured in the UK doesn't mean that the parts don't come from all over Europe. How are Irish businesses dealing with these sort of supply chain worries?
I think they've been preparing since obviously Enterprise Ireland is there to support them with these issues, their clear issues. And for the last 2.5 years, we've been helping companies to prepare for a hard Brexit in the case that they may not have that security of supply, and to look for alternative suppliers outside of the UK. I would say that the resilience of Irish companies is quite good, and has been it's been an opportunity for Irish businesses to plan better, to prepare for this hard Brexit. So clearly certainly as far as I'm concerned, we have a lot more Irish businesses coming to us in the French market, looking for partnerships, and not only to sell product, but also to replace existing suppliers.
Indeed. Well, obviously, here in France, Irish businesses there are many of them installed. Do you think there's any feeling of being torn between the UK, which is their primary export market, and the EU, which is the second one, but could become their first one?
Well, exactly. I think that there's a sense of great optimism because, I mean, we would always say that Irish businesses should treat the French market and, in fact, the Eurozone market as an extension of its own market. France, for example, is a natural second market after the UK. I mean, France is actually the closest country in terms of distance from Ireland on the continent. So as far as I can see, there's absolutely no sense of being torn. It's a natural second market after the UK, and certainly we're seeing in the construction industry, for example, a lot of the Irish construction companies who have succeeded very well in, for example, the Crossrail project in London are coming to the continent, and notably for the Grand Paris project, they'll be pitching their services and products using their experience from the UK on the continent. So we will be supporting them in that way.
Ah, the Grand Paris project, that's very interesting. So do you think more Irish companies want to do business in France now than before this whole Brexit debacle?
I think so, yes. I think it's been an opportunity for France to shine and the opportunities in France to be communicated better. Obviously, our agenda is to help companies to diversify. So we have been advising more our client companies on the opportunities in France. And it's all about communication. So once you communicate the opportunities and then help the companies to prepare themselves to pitch better for the opportunities, we're seeing a 10% increase in growth for the French market over the last couple of years, and we're very optimistic about the future.
Oh, great. Well, Theresa May's Brexit deal has failed to pass Parliament on a number of occasions now. The main reason cited for its recurring downfall, usually the infamous Irish border backstop. That's aimed at avoiding customs checks on the border between EU member Ireland and UK member Northern Ireland. The backstop is a contingency plan that could keep the entire UK in a customs union with the EU long past Brexit Day, thus preventing London from striking trade deals outside the EU. Well, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, visited the UK and Ireland this week. She warned the UK to be very careful about any change to the backstop.
We made it clear to them that while we want the best possible outcome, people have spoken, they want to leave the EU. That's the decision their country is making, has made, and as they work it out, not to think for 1 minute that there's any comfort for them in the fact that if they leave the EU, they would quickly have a US-UK trade agreement. That's just not in the cards.
So obviously, Ireland and the U.S. also have historically had a very close relationship, both politically and in terms of trade. How is Ireland's trade relationship developing with the U.S. these days?
It's very healthy, actually. The U.S., in fact, North America as a whole represents, it's the second largest market after the U.K. for Irish Indigenous exports. And in fact, we're expanding our presence. Enterprise Ireland is opening an office in Seattle shortly. We have quite a number of offices throughout the states, helping Irish businesses to grow. And we're very much looking forward to any future growth and trade deal that might facilitate further growth.
Well, back here to Europe, we've seen a lot of businesses from London with headquarters in the city, especially banking businesses, making contingency plans wherein they establish headquarters in European capitals, be it Paris, Frankfurt, and often Dublin. Do you think there's any rivalry between Ireland and France in attracting that business from the city of London?
I don't think so. I mean, certainly it's not the business that I'm in, but I think there's plenty to go around, and, you know, the city will still remain strong, I'm sure. But as far as I'm concerned, any Irish business that is supplying into, and we're looking at startups in particular in the fintech space that are supplying into large financial institutions, the market will still continue to be London. It will be a growing market in the Paris market. And it's such a global market anyway, you know, that I certainly don't see any particular rivalry in that area.
Have you seen any change in the actual ways in which Irish companies are conducting their exports since this whole Brexit deadlock came about? I'm thinking about the land bridge in particular.
On the land bridge, well, certainly we're examining all sorts of alternative routes into the Eurozone markets, considering other routes directly into the continent via France or Rotterdam, for example. But I must say, just in terms of behaviour, certainly Irish companies are a lot stronger. As far as France is concerned, we're seeing certainly a better ability in languages, and we'd like that to improve. An investment in the French language in order to be able to better conduct businesses. We're seeing that Irish businesses are financing better their export efforts. They're investing more in online optimization, for example. They're investing in skills. They're investing in innovation. In order to be competitive in the French market, obviously they have to increase their levels of innovation. So Enterprise Ireland is there constantly to support them. But certainly I'm seeing a much more resilient company having to be resilient because the competition is rife, and you have to be strong, and you have to have an innovative offer and service in the French market.
Indeed. And on that note, that's where we'll leave it. Sinead Lonergan from Enterprise Ireland, thank you so very much for being with us. That's it for People in Profit for this week. You can find the best of our business coverage on our Facebook page, France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at BSQuinn. Until next time, thanks for watching.
The world is ever changing. The news doesn't wait. That's why at France 24, we'll always be there to help make sense of world events. For the best international coverage, 24 hours a day, no matter what, France 24 is with you everywhere, all the time.